Should be everybody should be in now. Everybody's on mute.
Hello, everybody. We'll be getting started shortly. We're gonna allow a few more agents to join.
Oh God, that sounds great.
Thank you.
Please mute your mics if you can.
31st day of October 2025.
Sarah, can you mute if you can? Thank you very much, Miss Ma'am.
Not bye, hi, everyone. Welcome to the Halloween edition of Virtual Intelligence. Big props to Mr. Joel Frazier showing up in costume. Tom Woodworth showing up in costume. Let's go. Mackenzie with the fangs. Let's go.
Yeah.
Bonus points from Deadpool from everyone that goes camera on. Double bonus points for camera on plus costume. As you, Haley Joe, costume.
Oh, look at Luisa on here.
Luisa, love it.
All right, Majorie, I like that.
Baby, come to Dubai.
Yeah. Mackenzie's got a little backdrop back there. I see that. Oh, and the fangs. You're right about that.
Here we go.
Joel, are you Dumb or Dumber or just wearing that outfit?
Yeah, man, this is Dumb and Dumber. This is Harry. Here's the look.
Look at
Now,
this
if you
one
pop
over here.
out some Banaka and spray it in the air,
Yeah.
free VE service for a month.
Hey, Christopher.
We just
this
got
is
through
great.
riding the mini bike, man. I had to tell you that. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
It's so warm. It's so warm. You had an extra pair of gloves this entire time, Joel?
I'm sorry.
There was a Dumb and Dumber quote.
Gotcha. Yeah, sorry. I was just looking at the video riding the mini bike with Harry and Lloyd on this little bitty mini bike. Look just like the movie.
We love it. We love it. We love it.
I bought
Samsonite.
the
I was
damn
so
mini
close.
bike just for today.
We love it. We love it. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, it is 1:04. Thank you for joining us. To the dozens on camera and the millions and millions streaming at home, thank you so much for joining us. We are having a little fun today, as you can imagine. All we need is a little excuse to have a little fun. And thank you to the rich holiday of Halloween for letting us do that. Thank you for sharing it. Hopefully, you guys are not too hopped up on sugar or candy yet. You're prepping for your evening, chasing your kids around or anything. But in the meantime, while we got you, hopefully we're going to be able to give you some value. This is just our style. To break this down, this is just our style. Have a little fun, have a little business, have some laughs, bring some people together. Let's go. The big debate internally right now, there's a big board behind the wall at Virtual Intelligence. How long will I be able to sweat in this mask before taking it off? I will not tell you what the over-under is, but write your bets down. We'll reveal it at the end. I am sweating profusely inside it, in case you are wondering. So, with that, why are we here? Well, we're here because you love us, I guess, or you thought we were crazy enough to join the webinar, which we appreciate, but the reality is we're going to have some real value. You guys are all insurance professionals. You've all either, through the concept of coming in as a customer, a prospect, a follower, a friend, said, hey, that Michael Cruz guy, he's not even in costume. He just looks that good all the time.
All the time.
And I will tell you something I say to a lot of people, and Michael Cruz is one of the most diligent, detail-oriented, process-driven, methodical business owners, definitely inside of insurance, but outside as well. And any opportunity that anyone in or outside the industry can get to either A, consume some of his content on business or communication or organization is huge. But today, you're going to get to look behind the curtain at not just somebody who helps us guide this business, but someone who has more outsourced and virtual employees than he does licensed staff. And it's one of the most important benchmarks when people join us. They go, hey, how do I make sure I get the most out of what you guys do? And I always point, it seems like it's inside baseball, but I point to our founders or Michael in terms of leveraging these services. They do it, they've done it the longest, they do it the best. And it starts a lot with delegation and trust. And what you'll see when Michael starts his very beautiful process, it's the most beautiful, everyone knows it. No one else has a process like this, no one does. When you see it, you're gonna go, dang, that guy's EBITDA, his revenue per employee, the value of his agency has to be some of the top percentile in the entire industry, regardless of premium size, because he leverages this so well. So as a little teaser on Michael, if you don't know him already, that agency phone rings 200 times a day, and they're bilingual. And I always say, if we can place people in your agency that are capable from their intelligence, their aptitude, their workmanship, their professionalism, to be able to handle the volume of calls at such a high world-class phone standard customer journey like they do in Michael's, we've yet to meet another agency yet that has more complexities on the phone, but with the process as dialed in as him. So,
Amen.
Michael's agency is the gold standard on front-facing quote journey. You know, we see some of these other companies go, oh, well, hey, our folks can do quotes. Not like this. Not like how you're about to see. This is world class. So, without further ado, my kind friend, the one and only, you can certainly golf clap, air clap, or hooty hoo. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Michael Cruz.
Wow, wow, wow. What an intro. The great Davie Holt. I am so excited about this. I'm just going to take you around, Davie, and do my intro every time I walk into a room. I
agree to those terms wholeheartedly.
The bar has set high with the introduction, so I hope I can, meet those expectations. Super excited about this journey that I've, embarked very early on in my career. The quoting process, because it's one of the most important processes in an agency, especially we're going to focus more on the personal line side. I started this journey when I became an Erie agent. I used to have a management system called Zanatech, IMS, if some of the Erie agents would know. And they used to hold this in-person, conferences and workshops. And they would bring on this trainer called Joe Hagan. And he used to be an Erie agent, very successful, and he built his practices. And he's the one that kind of helped me get started in this journey of basically systemizing my agency and working on processes. So what you're going to see today here is kind of like something that I've been working on for years and modifying as we go. And to say that this is a never-ending process when it comes to, systemizing your agency, because nothing ever stays the same. So you have to be willing to adapt and modify, but it all starts with you. And I'm hoping today I can give you a blueprint of what works for me, and hopefully it'll work for you too. So with that being said, let's get started with the action.
And by the way, guys, this is I'm wearing a friggin' Deadpool mask. This is as open as you can get. If you've got a question, throw it in the chat. I'll make sure Michael sees it. Someone will, or raise your hand. We'll get it out there, because the best webinars or the best process orientation is not only ask Michael about his process, but philosophically, he's going to share with you why he believes in this too, right? Because there's a lot of biases. Oh, I don't want a virtual employee to handle that, or oh, I need a licensed person to steward the entire journey. Michael's going to show you a couple myths that you may have assumed don't have to be true about hiring and workforce planning and process orientation as well. So if you're like, there's no way that's true, raise your hand and ask how he does it, why he does it.
Absolutely. Feel free to enter your questions in the chat, and we'll get to them as we go in the presentation. So this is my step-by-step guide, and if you don't have a standard process for quoting, this is a great start. But before we get started, I wanted to really emphasize on something a revelation that I had. My coach, Joe Hagan, basically had a setup where he, educated me on the importance of having, basically non-licensed staff in the agency, just like a doctor's office, just like a lawyer has, not everybody in an attorney's office is an attorney, and same thing for the doctors. Same thing for our agency. For the longest time, we thought, hey, everyone has to have a license. That's not the case. There's, 60 to 70% of the things that we do in an agency don't require a license. So, there's a huge shift that has happened because now that entry-level labor has become extremely difficult to find locally. I mean, if you own an agency, this is no mystery, right? You got the big retail companies offering very competitive salaries, $17 an hour, $20 an hour, just to get started with no experience. So the entry-level labor in the U.S. has been disappearing for that entry-level labor that we need. We need someone that has, high attention to detail, that is going to be consistent, that's not going to call out on Mondays every time they're hungover. So you need a professional labor, for that entry-level labor. The workload has increased. I mean, we know that's no mystery, right? Carriers are pushing more and more of the task, but our commission rates are not necessarily increasing with that added responsibility, And so that's why I went embark on this journey, just like Jason, just like Travis, with the outsourcing labor, because we needed to find people that were, competent, that were educated, that are professional. And that's what we do. We help you guys connect with talent across the world, people that are going to be college educated, that are going to be, competent. So the goal is to outsource a lot of the routine non-revenue tasks, and leave the opportunity cost for your highest paid employees, the local licensed employees, that they can focus on revenue generating tasks, So with that, wanted to start by saying the quoting process, like I said, is one of the biggest money makers. And what are we looking for? We're looking for a process that is consistent, right? We want to make sure that when the client calls in, the experience is the same every time. We want to make sure that in that process, we're reducing the errors that are coming in. One of the biggest mistakes that people make is that they don't have a process for intaking data for the quote. So now when you go and hire a quoter or something like that, it's hard for the quoter. Why? Because you don't have a specific process. The data that's coming in is not coming in the same way. So that's why consistency is key. Data accuracy, right? We want to make sure that we're writing good business. And the way we do that is by doing upfront underwriting with the stuff that we're quoting. And we want to make sure that this system is predictable. We want to reduce the turnaround. We want to enhance the client interaction. And in this process, we're going to focus on specialization. We're going to make sure that we build a process that, people can become experts in different parts of the process, almost like an assembly line. All right. So with that being said, let's talk about the step number one. The step number one in an agency is basically how we gather the quote. And I will say, it is very challenging. We don't have all the tools for us to make it easy to gather all the information. So there's a lot of room there for improvement in our industry. So we have to work with the tools that we have. But the biggest mistake that people make in this step is that they cut corners. They just want to do it so swiftly. They want to save so much time. But I'm telling you, this is where the money making happens in the quoting process, is the data gathering. You cannot skip this step, because eventually, if you need to requote these prospects, if you need to reshop them in the future, all that data you did in the front, that's going to be the key. So in our agency, we have basically two main ways that people ask for quotes. One is going to be through the phone. They very simple. They call. And they provide the information over the phone. We still get a lot of that to this day. A lot of people start the quoting process through the phone. The second, way is people just go online and they search for, hey, I want to get a quote for my insurance, and then they fill out some kind of quote on your form on your website to provide the information. So as a bonus to kind of show you guys that I walk the walk, I have here in this call one of my staff members that she's been with me for almost 2 years. Her name is Luisa, and she's actually my lead trainer in my agency. And we've worked very closely to create a script for the onboarding of new clients of the quote gathering. So right now, I'm gonna tell you, one of the biggest challenges that your agency has is that you don't have an introduction script when someone calls your agency. I can promise you that if I do some secret shopping and I call each one of your agencies, most agents don't have a standard way of greeting the customer and explaining what the process is going to be when you're getting a quote. If you can put in the chat here, please tell me, how many agents right now have a script that all their agents follow when someone calls your agency, that I can call your agency and I can get a very similar script from all of your agents. Please share if you do, or if you don't. I'm very curious.
Just put yes or no. It's okay. It doesn't matter. Most of us don't. I didn't either until I met Michael. And Michael, we also do have a hand up real quick, but if you want to take a break from Miss Sarah Arnold. Sarah, if you still have something to say, or was that a mistake?
Disregard the hand up. I was trying to chat. Sorry about that.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Okay.
Sarah's an awesome agent,
How are
also
you,
a fellow
Mike?
agent. Great to see you.
You too. Thanks for putting this on.
All right. So the reality is, and this is the biggest challenge, right? Because there's a lot of people do quoting very differently. Some people want to give you a quote right away. Some people want to give you a quote in 2 days. If you call Geico, they promise you a quote in 15 minutes. So most shoppers do not know what your agency process is. So wouldn't it make sense to educate your prospect on what your quoting process is, right? So that is the biggest challenge that most agencies have. They just you call for a quote and you start gathering information. All right, what's your date of birth? Blah, blah, blah. And then when you finish gathering the quote, all right, it'll take 2 days to get back to you. Wait. I thought I was going to get a quote right now. So with that being said, I want to go ahead and bring on the line Luisa. She works out of my Columbia office. She's my lead trainer. And I want to role play with her, kind of like the script that we use every single day at Foresight when someone calls for a quote. All right, Luisa, is your mic working?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. All right, so I'm going to say ring, ring, and then you can take it from there, okay?
Sure.
All right, ring, ring.
Thank you for calling Foresight Insurance. This is Luisa. How may I help you today?
Hey, Luisa, I'm actually calling to get an auto insurance quote.
Okay, great. I can help you with that. I would like to know first, how did you hear about our agency?
I just searched online and searched for like the top, insurance companies in the area, and your agency came up.
Amazing. That's great to hear. So I want to have a few questions for you. Have you received an insurance quote from another company down that you're shopping around, or this is your first stop?
So you guys are my first stop. I haven't looked around yet at any other company.
Okay, that's great. Also, I would like to know if you have active insurance right now, or if you don't, and in what insurance company?
I do. I have Geico right now, and they keep increasing my rates. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, I understand. So in this case, I'd like to take a minute to explain what I'll do for you today. Is that okay?
Yes, that sounds good.
Oh, perfect. Your time is very valuable for us. That's why we want to make the process of finding the best insurance coverage as simple as possible. In fact, I'm going to do most of the work for you. So on this call, I'm going to gather all the information we need to run your quote and find all the available discounts that you may qualify for. Then, after we get off the phone, my team will shop with various insurance companies to find you the best combination for cost and coverage. Just so you know, here in Foresight, we offer auto, home, business, and life insurance. In this case, since you're interested in auto insurance, I'm going to tell you exactly what we need in order for us to start the quoting process. Okay, we're going to need a picture of the driver's license, and we're going to need a picture of the registration of the vehicles that you currently have. Okay, so this has a turnaround for 24 hours since we're an independent agency. Are you just looking for auto insurance?
Actually, yeah, it's a good idea. I'll get I'd like to get quotes for auto and home.
Okay, that's perfect. In this case, since you're interested in both, you will be accessing to the biggest discount that we can offer here at the agency, which is the multi-policy discount. So does that sound good to you?
Yep, that sounds great.
Perfect. So in this case, I'm going to need 5 to 10 minutes of your time to gather all the necessary information. Are you okay with the timing right now, or do you want to schedule a call back?
Yep, yeah, we can go ahead and do it. All right, Luisa. Well, hey,
Perfect.
let's give a big round of applause to Luisa because we put her on the spot here, bringing her in front of 40 plus people. Thank you so much, Luisa. I appreciate you so much. So
I got a
Thank
question.
you.
go ahead.
I had to go mask off for this one. Mask off, mask off. All right. For those of you that said yes, that you do have a script like that, how many of you can now follow up and say that it's executed like Louisa just did every single time? I'd love to know in the chat. Mitchie. Okay. Sarah Arnold with the truth bomb, right? Appreciate that. She said unlikely. Jason,
I know
yes,
how I
because
handle
Michael
it. I
taught
can't
us.
promise the entire team is doing it the same way consistently every time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was
call,
awesome,
Sarah. You're
Luisa. Excellent work. And I think that's what you see in, for those of you that do have a script, maybe you have a script. Quite often, I ask this question, hey, if you got a process, do you love it? Not always. Yeah, we have a script, but I don't know where I got it from. It's some standards. But in the process of learning and working with us, you get to benchmark off of what Michael does to get results like that. That kind of consistency, professionalism, empathy, checking to make sure you have time, offering additional services. Just to let you know, you might be here for home and auto, but we do offer other things. Laying a foundation for a later cross-sell. If you've got that in your office and you guys know you execute it, record it and send it to us. I'd love to benchmark with you, but that was just excellent. Sorry I had to take the mask off and filibuster. That was just incredible, Louisa. Props to you. And Michael, sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I really appreciate you.
And so, my biggest realization with this whole hard market was that we were missing such a big opportunity because we're so in a rush to quote people. And really the magic happens here in this data gathering stage. We got to get the right data up front so we can write profitable business so that if we don't write this business, we can X-date it to quote it into the future so that at renewal, if we have to reshop it, we have all the information in a very standardized way. And that's why I have to give a huge shout out to my buddy, David Watson. He created RiskAdvisor, which, we offer. And this is the way I swear by the software because a lot of us have created our own quote forms. This one is a lot better because we're able to kind of get the data in one single way, shoot it to my CRM, shoot it to my rater. So this avoids the double entry. So that is one of the biggest benefits of this form. So, if you're not using Canopy Connect, that's another good way to gather the information. I believe RiskAdvisor also has that now, Policy Link. And I'm telling you right now, one of the things you should do is collect all the right documentation up front. The driver's license, the registrations, the policy documents. Why? Because right now, more than ever, people are trying to add vehicles in, their family and stuff like that. And there's a lot of crazy stuff going on right now. So highly recommend it. All right. Any questions on this step one before I go to step two?
Hey, if you're using RiskAdvisor, put Y RiskAdvisor, like yes for RiskAdvisor. If you're not, put that in there. If you're using Assault, put Assault in there. Put Y in Salt, yes, like you're using it. We're going to ask about these different products that make this process possible. And I just want to know, so it gives us a hint on if you're using it or you're not, because it is key to his process. Thank you, Michael.
Awesome.
Mike, before you get into that, can you explain what percentage of people actually will follow up with you and send registration and driver's license?
Actually, you can ask my superstar here, Luisa. Luisa, do you have trouble getting people to send that information?
No, they do send it every time.
Yeah, very rarely,
Follow
Sean.
up the process.
When I started this whole process, I thought the amount of people who were going to comply was going to drop significantly, but to my surprise, it didn't. And that's one of the things, you have to be willing to take risks in this business and try new things, because sometimes we make up reasons why it can't work, but we need to kind of push the envelope and see what works. And we also use our main number to text We get authorization at that point to basically text them moving forward. And then now they can text us the pictures of the driver's license and the registration through our main number. Now they have that number to text us for anything moving forward.
The other thing too is when they don't want to provide you that documentation, they're not serious about getting a quote in the first place. So you're not spinning your wheels and wasting your time on a prospect that's likely not going to turn into a client.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean,
Arnold.
We don't want as many people as possible. We need to be pre-qualified. Pre-qualified is the name of the game right now for us independent agents. We don't need quoting practice, you know. All right. So now we go to step 2, right? And this is kind of where most people started using, you know, we call them virtual employees. Some people call them virtual assistants. The quoting was where kind of the beginning where kind of you start that journey of delegating the non-licensed work. But the biggest problem that most agencies have, which we noticed, you know, when we were onboarding agencies, they have a huge problem here because the data is not coming in a standardized way for the quoting team to do their job, right? Does that make sense? The data has to come in a standard way so that your quoting team can have the data the same way every time. That's why it's important to have RiskAdvisor. That's why it's important to have a rater. The rater is your single entry point for all, you know, submissions. Your quoting team has to get familiar with your underwriting guidelines. So if you want, you can just start kind of a cheat sheet, you know, and look at the biggest pain points for underwriting. For home, you want to look at the roof year. You know, for auto, you want to look at violations and claims. So you got to have a cheat sheet guide for the underwriting guidelines. It's not just entering data into the system. Is your quoters have to get to you, you know, an actual quote that you can use. So for example, if I have a carrier that doesn't accept trampolines, don't send me back a quote from that carrier with a home quote, right? Because it doesn't qualify. That's why it's important to have those underwriting guidelines. And then also the biggest thing here, which my mentor, great, amazing human being, Dr. Billy Williams taught me, agency coverage standards. You know, if you can put in the chat, you know, how many of you have an agency coverage standards? What that means is that every time you quote, every time your team quotes, they're quoting the minimum coverage that the agency recommends, at least in the beginning. How many of you have an agency standard coverage? Because once you have that agency standard,
that's good. Sorry,
right?
Michael. Sorry, I thought I was muted. Sorry, that's good. That's good. All these people have this.
When you have that agency coverage standard, then we can tell your employee, your virtual employee is quoting, hey, I want you to quote combined single limit 500,000 every time. I want you to quote an umbrella every single time. That's what that standard is for. Okay, so if you don't have one right now, is the time to start one. Just open an Excel and basically write each line of coverage and put the minimum standard coverage. And then the kind of the last piece of this quoting process is we created a template that our agencies use to get the quotes back to our agents. So for example, you know, we'll put in that template things like the roof year, you know, violations. We'll actually put the date and the type of violation or claim, because all that data is easy to see in the system. Instead of having to pull up the clue, it's all in one summarized information from my licensed agents. All right, so this is the quoting process. Any questions here so far? All right, perfect.
Sean, it looks like you have one. You just still have your hand up by accident, brother?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay,
so
go ahead.
RiskAdvisor is step 1. I know you also use Canopy Connect, Mike. When does that come into the equation, or are you going to get to that?
No, that was basically the Canopy Connect we use mainly when someone has an online account and they want to get us their policy information. We'll text them the link to give us their policy documents.
During the pre-qualification stage?
Yep,
Step 1?
Yep, during the gathering of the information, yep.
Okay.
Did David Watson join us today? It's worth mentioning, Mitch. I think it's worth mentioning the Canopy Connect feature inside RiskAdvisor.
Yeah, I guess to be fair to both parties there, RiskAdvisor does have a Canopy Connect-ish, and I say that because Canopy's the founder of kind of how this all came about. They've got a Canopy Connect style link called Policy Link now. But the reason I bring it up is to say we still use Canopy Connect at the Insurance Alliance as well, because the Policy Link, David does not yet have hundreds of carriers like Canopy Connect has that they've built connections with over the last 5, 7, 10 years. So it's still a little premature in that. That's why Canopy is still a big factor in our play.
Yeah. And if you have RiskAdvisor, I mean, it's a free service. Go ahead and use that, policy link instead of Canopy. All right. So we've covered so far step 1 and 2. If you notice here on the top, I forgot to mention, so far, 2 of my steps have basically been done by my non-licensed team, right? What does the typical agency do? Step 1 and 2 is being done by your licensed agents, right? Let's go to step 3. So step 3 is where my licensed agents live, right? So all this time, my licensed agents can simply focus on talking to clients that are ready to buy. Think about that. Think of how many more policies your agents can sell if that's all they had to do. If they don't you love it when agents tell you, well, I didn't have the time to call them back. Well, now you do. You do, because you don't have to be waiting for that phone call, gathering information, quoting. So, this is where the magic happens for your licensed team. So my licensed team gets the quote in a very organized way. We get all the underwriting data in a way that now when I call back the client, I can ask very specific questions. Hey, we saw these drivers on your house. Do they still live there? What is, so we have all this information ready to go for our licensed agents. When we're presenting, I recommend using video proposals. Every time I use a video proposal with Loom, every time someone emails me back, Michael, it was so helpful. Thank you for sending that video. That proposal can be watched at any time. They can watch it at night. They can share it with a spouse. As a matter of fact, they watch it multiple times sometimes. So if you're not using Loom to present these quotes, I'm telling you, you're missing the ball. It's a huge thing. I also use it for renewals, even for training. We use Loom for everything. So that's my preferred way. You send the Loom and then you follow up via phone to be able to follow up on that quote. The second best option is phone calls. And then the last and not recommended is the email, just emailing a quote. That's going to get you the lowest conversion. Okay. So any questions here so far on the presentation stage?
You're doing great, Michael.
I appreciate it. All right. Perfect. Now, one of the biggest things we have, and if we all have, sales agents, we know they're not the most detail-oriented people in the world, right? You always got to remind them, hey, make sure you put your notes in the system. Hey, make sure you follow up with this. Wouldn't you love if you assign a task and that task always gets done every single time? You know how you get that done? You take it off the salespeople plate and you give it to a virtual employee. My virtual employees are significantly more consistent than anybody. You tell them to follow process and they follow it. So now when your agent presents the quote, binds the quote, every single other task that happens can be delegated to a non-licensed agent. We are my agency. We help cancel prior policies. You have to collect e-signatures on applications. You have to send welcome emails with policy documents. Sometimes you have to request the initial payment. Sometimes, there's an inspection and the insurance company is asking you to repair something. Well, that's my client-facing non-licensed team handles that. So your licensed team should only be having valuable conversations and selling policies, So that's how I've been able to kind of systemize this whole process. At the beginning, maybe you're only starting with the quoting team, but then you can kind of work your way up to have different people doing different things. All right. Any questions on this step so far? Perfect. So I'm a strong believer in this agency line type of setup because is the way to systemize your agency. Now, what kind of personalities do you need for each stage? So for example, my data gathering team, it's like Luisa. They're outgoing, they're friendly, they're fluent, that person, you don't want to put that person doing quoting because that's not what their personality is for. My quoting team, on the other hand, most likely is an introvert person, very detail oriented, very process driven. I just went to the IAMB and they did the DISC profile. This is more like the C in the profile. This is the person that is very, they don't want to be on the phone. They're not social most of the time. They're very, process driven. Your producers, we know the biggest thing with producers is selling them on the fact that is the opportunity cost. My producers, when I started this whole journey, they would tell me, Michael, I can do it better. I can do it faster. Why do I want to delegate the quoting process to someone else? Now, when my quoters are out sick or something, they want to cry because they don't want to do quoting anymore, and that's the advantage. You have to get the buy-in from your producers because of that. And then, the fact that you're delegating the non-licensed post task, it means that your producers don't have to worry about those kind of things, and just sell it like, hey, you'll have an assistant. What producer wouldn't want an assistant, that you're paying for? They can sell more. All right. So as I mentioned, even with a smaller team, you can start by standardizing this process. And even though you're wearing the same hat every time, even there's one person, but you can tell yourself, hey, now I'm wearing the data gathering hat. Hey, now I'm wearing the quoting hat. Hey, now I'm wearing the licensed agent hat. So that's why you want to kind of standardize it, because eventually you can kind of delegate different parts of the process to an individual, and that's how you're able to scale. All right. And with
hey, Michael, we started with 50 people and you've actually kept them all. So you're doing good. Usually about half of them leave after I start talking. Good job.
Yeah, Michael, maybe if I could ask a follow-up question that I think, we hear a lot in discussions with agents is you made a claim, which I think is bold, but I know you can support it. You said that these folks that we find in Colombia, the Philippines, your virtual employees, are the most consistent. Why would you feel so bold as to say that, because we see these agency owners time and time again say, I got to have a licensed person have the entire conversation from soup to nuts. I got to have a licensed person do this work. I got to have a licensed person. Why do you believe so strongly that a non-licensed virtual employee provides more consistency?
I think a lot of times you have someone brand new starting to the industry, and they're more open to follow your process, where someone that has bad habits and trying to change those bad habits is a little bit difficult, where you're starting with a clean state, and they're more likely to follow your process.
Okay. Do you use CRM, parentheses, AgencyZoom, and then she put AMS and AZ linked. Haley Joe said that, and Tammy also said that as well. And yeah.
So we use AgencyZoom, and I'm telling you, one of the biggest opportunities that most agencies can have. Think of it like this: every single year, think about how many quotes we do on every single year. What if you can systematically use your CRM to follow up with those leads? Because we know we're in a cyclical business. Maybe that carrier doesn't have an appetite right now. Maybe there's a moving violation or a claim. The CRM is the key so that you can set up the follow-up to follow up with that lead. You follow up with that lead until that person tells you no, or they buy from you. So that's what the CRM is, a huge missing piece, whether it's on the quoting process that you don't sell it, or when someone cancels in your agency. We all should be scheduling follow-ups through our CRM, because the CRM allows it to organize it and to do automation to follow up with those leads.
Michael, got another question. This is kind of like segregation of duties, kind of org chart. The good question from Marjorie is, does anyone on the quoting team also do service as well? Like how, we all understand the independent agent that need to bootstrap or pitch in or do multiple jobs and be cross-trained. How process-oriented are you on your quoting team crossing over to help out, or is built into their regular job, even their job description?
Yeah, that's a great question. So our quoting team does do service, and what I try to do is I try to have them do mainly back office stuff. So one of my biggest pet peeves is, like, I don't want my people that are on the phone, for example, chatting with my coverage.info, because I want them to be available to take calls. So I try to divide the responsibility. So they'll do like mortgagee changes. They'll do send out, kind of non-payment reminders. So there's a long list of like admin stuff that are not client facing that the quoting team can do. I call it back office. So that's the back office role that they fill.
For billing and endorsements, for answering those calls, what does that look like? Marjorie says.
Yeah, that's a great question. So the reason why I started this whole journey, I'm going to tell you right now, I went the route of Answer Connect, which is like an answering service. I did it for about 6 months. I built out the process. I work with them, but I would listen to the calls. And the problem that I have with them, it was they don't have access to our management system. they don't have access to our carriers. So when someone calls my agency, my non-licensed team can pull up the client on file, can note it to the file. They can even pull up the carrier to see if that policy is active, if there's any underwriting tasks that they have to do. So it's a completely different experience. So the fact that I can have somebody that actually works in my agency that can actually pull up the client is a whole different experience than just having someone that answers the phone, takes the message, and that's it. So part of my endorsement process, for example, I clean up my data. So every time you call in, we're going to pull up your household by phone number. We're going to verify your identity by address. And then I'm going to pull up the carrier to make sure that your policy is active and there's no issues there. And that happens with every single call that I get in my agency.
Kim says, hey, we're struggling on how to have VEs help with endorsements. And I think she's about to type due to licensing. Or she put LIC. Kim, if you can expand on that struggle.
Yeah, that's it, the licensing. Because, we just had a meeting today and said, look, we're not keeping our virtual employees. We don't even call them that. They're family. They're part of our group. And I want to bring them all the way in. I want them to help with the phones ringing off the hook. And I get 30 calls an hour. So I just was wondering about the endorsements, if you're actually having them like change an auto, or is there a licensing issue there?
Yeah, every state is going to be different. So you want to kind of go by what your state allows. But there's a lot of things that they can do. Mortgagee changes, billing, sending documents, also kind of breaking up different parts of the process, so that part of the process is done by the non-licensed versus licensed. I personally have, let's say, for example, a vehicle change. If you call my agency, Luisa will be the one probably answering and gathering your vehicle change information. Then I have a licensed person kind of, process the vehicle change. But, there are some states that allow that, for the non-licensed agent to process the vehicle change. So it really depends on what the state allows. But there's a lot they can do. It's just a matter of kind of like really looking at where your pain points are and seeing what part of that process can be delegated to the non-licensed person.
So another good question is, are VEs requesting reinstatements for policies in the carrier site?
Yeah. So for example, we've had situations where sometimes a policy cancels for non-payment, and we've had to get a statement of no loss, so they'll draft a statement of no loss, send it to the client to e-sign, upload it to the carrier, and follow up with the carrier to get that policy reinstated. So, they definitely can help with that.
And also to add to that, because we use VEs as well, we use a lot of Michael's process. When it comes to servicing, no one ever said that the VE is not allowed to put the information in. A lot of times they're not allowed to make the endorsement, which means finalize it. So sometimes having the information put into the system and having your licensed person just looking it over is a lot quicker than having them actually put in all the information rather than just doing a review of it. So that's another thing we do. Michael, do you guys do something similar on that?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes we'll have them input all the data and then we'll just verify before we hit submit. But just that whole data gathering, data input, sometimes is a huge time saver.
Yep.
Yeah. Sherry Hensley echoes that. She says the VA makes the change on an endorsement and is checked by a manager/agent before it's uploaded.
That's right,
to the carrier. Right.
That's right.
And that is the protection. Look, we talk about this. We've talked about it here. But we talk about it a lot in our marketing, in our demos. I'll reshare one of the most popular slides from our conversations with people is, what can a VE do? Now, oversimplified, our discussion is there's really only two things in each agency. Now, what Michael would do a really good job of is, hey, check with your local licensing and DOI to make sure this is true. But the oversimplified argument is there's really only two things that a license has you do in your agency, which is advise on coverage and risk, which includes selling and customer interactions, and then actually bind it. And that everything else that happens in the agency is just a subtask of those two license tasks, and therefore can be completed by a virtual employee. It's on the screen. So what happens sometimes when I put this screen up, what I say to agencies is, if you have a license in your agency or someone has a license, they don't need to be doing these things. And that provides an interesting dichotomy with the thought. One, the positive look is, what ways could I grow my agency if I redeployed my licensed people to do those 2 licensed things more often? But maybe the darker Halloween spooky question is if I pulled these things off of licensed staff plate, what would they be really doing for me with that inflated labor cost of having to pay for their license? Can they be redeployed to do customer facing licensed activities? That's kind of a sticky situation we get in by this point in the consultation, to say, are you overpaying for some labor? That's a real challenge. But these are all the things they can do, and the only things that they can't do are the things that are licensed, depending on your state. So I know we talk about that 57 things. If you go ask AI or ChatGPT, it says around 30. We've chopped it up a bunch of different ways. The point is, there's a lot of things you're probably having your licensed staff do that they shouldn't be doing. They should be fired from these activities and go do other things.
Yeah, and I want to also wrap it up with this. It's a journey, right? It doesn't happen overnight, So once you hire an employee, you kind of have your wish list of things you want them to do. You don't want to overwhelm them with too many things. You want to kind of like wait for them to master certain things before you move on to other things. That also builds their confidence. I think what happens with a lot of agencies, because they're paying for this employee, they want to get the maximum productivity out of that employee, but we need to be patient. We need to set time aside to meet with the employees, to spot check, to train, to coach. And, it's a process. So give it, 6 months to a year is what I've seen kind of the magic time where you start seeing them really be self-sufficient. It's like any employee, so that'll be something to keep in mind too.
Yeah, one thing, and I know we're at time. I'll wrap it up with, when you come into us and you say, hey, I do want somebody on the phones, front facing, helping me with the quoting process, and I know I'm going to get that person, but how do I get this standard of excellence from Michael? This world-class experience. It comes with it.
Right.
Michael, I always will reference the time when Jason and Travis and I and Mitch were sitting in Barranquilla. We're going through the process of merging with Michael's company, and Michael put Jason and Travis through his 4 hours worth of onboarding as he's delivering them this excellent phone journey. And Jason will admit that him and Travis were like, oh my God, we've owned this virtual employee company for 2 years, and we've had the agency for longer. We've never sat through this process, and done this at this level. And you get that when you say, hey, virtual intelligence, I want one of those. I want a Louisa in my agency.
Make sure.
Right? I want somebody in my agency like that. You're not going to have to do it blind.
Right.
We're going to do it with you, because even if you have your own standards, you get Michael's benchmark here to say, hey, maybe I haven't fully committed to that's how we handle endorsements, claims, whatever. And in lieu of me just trying to come up with it on my own, I'll just carbon copy what works in Michael's high volume, high quality agency. And you get that. So you're not going to be, after this call, left alone to just figure this out on your own. That's why you're going to work with us. And Cass, if you want to close us, that'd be great.
No, it's not closing. It's not.
Okay.
I want to add to what you and Michael are saying, and that is that we've been using it at the Insurance Alliance virtual employees since 2014. Before it was even cool, I used to get a hard time from other agents that they can't believe that I'm using this, blah, 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 blah. Here we are 10 years later. But what the most important thing is I hear it in your guys' voice and in your chats. You're thinking to yourself, does my virtual employee or my VA have this capability and this skill? This was what I challenged my team with, was after I left my third virtual employee company, because the quality of VE was not there. We've created the 2.0. We've created the fact that you're getting a very high quality VE. I don't know the exact number, but I know it's over 50 people that we get applicants. We're only going to pull probably 5 of those after they go through a very extensive process, whether it grades them on their spelling, on their grammar, their social skills, their technical skills. Because not only do we need them to come in at a high level and be able to produce confidently, but we also need them to be able to answer the phone within 30 days. After 30 days of training, we put them in your office and they can answer the top 10 to 15 calls that are being answered. You get to hear them role play before this. We're going to supply them with the technology. So that's why I say, and this is an overused term, but it's kind of like the taxi and the Uber. They both deliver clients, and that's what our VEs do. They both do the task, but it's the technology that makes it a better, smoother process. And that's why it's just very important. So if I want to ask you a couple things real quick, is there anything else you want to know about? Because we have access to tons of agents who have great new business workflows, their service workflows, maybe some accounting, maybe some data entry, whatever it could be. Is there something that you want to learn so that we can do this again in next month? And we'll even try to keep it a Thanksgiving theme as well. Okay. And then last, if you want to reach out to me, Davie, or Michael personally, or put it in the chat and say, hey, can someone give me a call? I just want to know more. Davie, he's fun. He's not pushy, but people love it when they deal with him. So if you want to put it and say, hey, give me a call or something like that, please do that. But most importantly, what do you want to see next month so that we can supply that for you? That's all I have to say, Davie.
Tammy says AgencyZoom best practices. I think that's an awesome one because, another big clunky helpful tool that people don't properly utilize.
Great idea. And I'm just going to brag, but Mitch Gibson, he was the CTO of my office, is the CTO of Virtual Intelligence. He was an agent for 7 years before he started taking over the technology. He's those young kids that just get this shit, right? And he is one of the best. I tell this all the time. Joel, you're a witness. I was just telling you this the other day. I put my AZ system up against anybody in the industry because he's done such a good job. Mitch, that's a great idea. Whoever gave that, that is great. We'll try to make sure that happens for you.
Yeah, I'll make now that just means I got to create a PowerPoint. So thank you, whoever said that. And we'll see it next month.
I'll answer two quick questions. Kim came in and said, what form are you using front facing for the web since RiskAdvisor has nothing for us? RiskAdvisor does have that problem licked. What's the name of that form facing?
It's a customer facing form, but just like everybody else is going to agree with me here. David knows it, and everybody's being a little impatient, but he said it's going to be done, and it's not done. But I promise you, all of their eggs are in that basket of getting that completed.
Okay, so there's that. And then Josh Lipstone says, how do your VEs who gathered the information handle when someone asks for coverage advice? Kind of that pivot to go, need a licensed agent. Michael, how do they handle that when somebody triggers something that needs an agent?
Yeah, we basically try to find, and transfer that call to a licensed agent. If the licensed agent is not available, then we schedule a callback. But we're really trying to gather more information before that callback happens, right? What exactly, is it that you have a question on? So by the time that the licensed agent calls back, they can do their research and have a good answer for them.
Good question, though.
That is.
Well, team,
thank you very much. This is important that you guys showed up. You're wanting to be better. I'm not going to be one of those people that says, well, you'll be the best because you showed up. But it does have to do with the fact that I think you're listening to your team and you're listening to your own sanity. So thank you very much for coming to this, for real.
Yeah, and when you hop on a consultation with you, we approach this holistically. We don't just say you need a VE. We'll look at your tech. We'll look at your workflows. I always tell people we'd rather have you a customer long-term than just slap somebody in your office if you're not ready. So that's the angle you get with us. Team, this was a blast. Thank you for letting me. I was saying in a little quick live, this justifies me now going back to Jason and saying I get to write up the Deadpool costume. So that, thank you all for that, showing up. It was not.
All right, you can. Permission, yes.
All right. I love you all. Thank you for joining. Have a happy and safe Halloween. All right, Joel, we'll see you here in a bit.
Bye-bye, everybody.